Today we are going to build 7 wonders of the world. Not the 7 wonders of the world, I wouldn't be able to do them justice, but instead put our own spin on each one and build 7 completely original wonders of our own Minecraft world. I am excited. This is a video I've been planning for months now, and I just want to get started with the building. But I can't, because I have got some serious resource gathering to do. I need moss blocks, deep slate, stone bricks, tough, mossy cobblestone, cobbled deep slate, mossy stone bricks, strip pear oak logs, tough bricks, terracotta, smooth sandstone, mud brick, cobbled deep slate walls, which is just the stuff that needs more than one shulker box. It totals to over 50,000 items, and then there's another probably 50,000 items of much smaller quantities, which is going to be even more tedious to gather. So basically, Pickaxe, you and I have got some work to do. Oh boy, okay. Let's get digging. Well, that took a while. You've probably witnessed maybe 5% of the total resource gathering there. It was a lot of just pacing back and forth in my storage room, going through all my chests, filling up the shulker boxes, but it's okay, because we got it all done now, ready to go. As you can see, some wonders are going to be a little bit bigger than others, looking at the size of the shulker monsters, but I can promise you they're all going to be just as cool. But we're going to take the red shulkers over here, which is what we need for the first wonder of the world, and head off in, I think, this direction, a few thousand blocks away. Now I know you've clicked on this video to watch me play Minecraft and place blocks and stuff, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to turn it into a history lesson as well. But don't freak out, only a quick one, I promise. Each wonder of the world gets its own fact, so hopefully you can come away from watching this having learned 7 new things because, well, history is important. First up, we have the Coliseum. We're going to build our Coliseum as though it's just been finished, but one aspect that I am going to skip over is the retractable roof that it actually had. It was called the Velarium and was basically just a bunch of canvas sails that would be manually pulled across with ropes to give spectators shade from the burning Mediterranean sun. I have no idea how to even begin building something like that in Minecraft, hence why we're leaving it out. Probably using redstone or something, and that's just not happening. So the reason as to why we've gone a good 4,000 blocks away from the base is because I don't really want these wonders of the world to necessarily feel like a part of my current world. Sounds a bit strange, I know, but I do have big plans for this project going beyond this episode that we'll talk more and more about as the video goes on, but it doesn't really match with everything else I've got going on in my world. I love all of my builds and I love my base, but there's no real cohesion with any of them. It's sort of just random stuff all placed together. With this project, I want it to feel the opposite, something that's going to be very immersive to be a part of. Basically, I've got the itch to start a new world, which I'm not going to do. This is my forever world, I love it here, don't plan on saying goodbye anytime soon, but I'm going to do the next best thing, which is to go somewhere far, far away and start a brand new massive project. One slight issue with that, this. That is not a naturally occurring build. When I was planning this episode and picking the locations for where everything was going to go, I sort of landed on this general bit of terrain going down here, and my distraction was this, my map art. So I kind of just assumed there was nothing else around. How I missed this, I have no idea. It's not the end of the world though. It's really not that big a deal if other builds are nearby. I'm definitely not going to destroy this thing, so we'll just have to try and incorporate it somehow, or just leave it be. But anyway, getting back to the first wonder of our world, we now have some pretty epic terrain to build upon. I've basically turned this hill up here into a steeper and more complete hill, with a fairly impressive cliff front and center. Now this is going to link into the build itself. The buttons are there for a reason, but I think it'll make more sense to explain once the Coliseum is actually built up here. I am also definitely... Oh no, how have I looked at him in this angle? I'm gonna have to light up the caves. How I've done that, I don't quite know. Yeah, take that. Oh man, what an entranceway. Whether you'd be entering here scared for your life or feeling super brave, you definitely feel all of the eyes of the spectators on you. A complete circle of them all. Now, I know what you're thinking. This doesn't look like the Coliseum. No, not at all. These are only, as I said, meant to be inspired by the 7 wonders of the world, so it's kind of more so of an arena, I would say. Though, is there really any difference? On 3 out of the 4 sides we have these staircases, which is actually where the spectators are going to have to go to funnel into the arena itself. So you get to the top here and you just pop out into all of the seats and you can go find your spot. But those who are fighting in the arena have to go through the front entrance, and the only way to that is up the cliff. Okay, technically they could just walk around either side. That is an option, but they don't. There's an honor system here. If you want to fight in the arena, you gotta scale the mountain first of all. Which is exactly what all of these buttons are here for, as some kind of foot or handholds, just to make it slightly easier, I guess. As for the why they're doing this and the who we're doing this, it's all stuff we're gonna delve into in a future episode, but for now that's kind of the gist of the arena. We do have a couple of doors here, either side of the entranceway, which is how you get into the inner workings. So if we go through here, we can come to some ladders, which if we go up them, it just goes to each of the entranceway, which maybe is where the guards or workers here just go to oversee everything and make sure it's all in functioning order. And then back down the ladder, and if we hang up right this time, there's just a big long circular corridor going all the way around the arena, which actually goes to more ladders, of course, and also these doors, which is cages for animals or maybe more people coming to fight in the arena. We've got one of these on all 3 sides, minus the entranceway obviously, which is pretty similar to what they do in the actual Coliseum. They would often bring lions and all sorts of other animals out to fight, so maybe that's what they are. Except we don't have lions, so I guess it's going to have to be like sniffers or something. I don't really know if I want to put a sniffer in that cage, honestly. Vindicators. That probably would have been a better option. Or, you know, like evokers and other actual bad mobs of the game. Not sniffers. Anyway, doesn't matter. That is the arena all done, so we can move on to the second wonder of our world, which is actually inspired by Petra. The structures of Petra are, of course, incredibly impressive, but maybe even more so was their water systems. Excuse me. Next slide. Thank you. Oh, I can't get help around here. So the Nabateans actually engineered dams, reservoirs and water channels to capture flash floods and store it for later use. Pretty helpful when you're living in the middle of a desert, which in this case we are near a desert, but instead we're actually going to construct our one in the Mesa biome. It is going to be carved directly into this massive Mesa mountain that I've found, which hopefully should be big enough. We are literally going to turn part of this mountain into the building, which is exactly how the Nabateans would have constructed Al-Khazna, which is the most famous of the buildings in Petra. Now there's going to be a lot of digging required for this, obviously, and there is no way I'm doing that without a beacon, so down I go. I don't really know how far I need to go down. I guess I'll just keep going until I find something, or fall to my death, one or the other. Oh, man. Okay. Caught myself just in time. Yeah, this probably should be good. And I said, let there be beam. Cool. Right, get haste 2 on. Let's go make a dent in this mountain, shall we? that is a sizable dent, and I fear I've made a mistake. There was really two ways I could do this. I could either make the building protruding from the rock, kind of starting around here and then making the terrain around it from scratch. Seems like a lot of work, right? Or I could do the opposite, which is what we're going to do, and make the building in the terrain and then terraform around it by breaking more blocks, as opposed to placing. But looking around at the terrain that I've got left to shape, I'm beginning to think I made the wrong decision. That's a lot of blocks I'm going to have to mine out. Which is exactly why I'm going to put it off and make the building instead, which is actually a treasury. And this is the only wonder of our world, which is pretty similar to its real-life counterparts. We're basically making my own version of Al Kazna. Now, something I want to do with this project is for each wonder of the world, I want to create its own civilization, which might be setting my sights a little bit too high, so we'll say village instead. But I want to create some kind of community around each of these wonders. So for this one, for example, maybe they're obsessed with treasure and they like to collect it, or possibly they have this building as a place to offer up goods to their god. All that stuff we can delve deeper into as and when we get to each of the villages. But that's the general idea. I want to create 7, maybe even more civilizations that are all within their own world, really. Separate from everything else I have going on. I've just realized something, which I'm sure a lot of you did too. That's not centered, which is really annoying. Okay, I think if that goes there, that goes there, and then I need a brick and a slab, there and there. Okay, I think that's centered now. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, whew, crisis averted. But pretty cool, right? It's, as you can see, very similar to our Kazna, but I've just changed up a few of the shapes here and there. So it's similar, but different enough. Something that might help it feel just a little bit more finalized is getting a terracotta backdrop on this instead of just the plain stone. I'm trying my best to follow the same pattern that's on the natural terrain, so when we eventually do blend all of this together, it won't look super weird. Yeah, okay, that helps quite a bit actually. You can sort of see how it's gonna look, but we definitely do need to do some more shaping, because it's not great right now. And for some reason, the terracotta actually dips down at some point here, so like it links up over there on this side, but over here, unfortunately, it's 1 block off, which is kind of annoying, but I'm sure we can figure something out somehow. I've just done the one side for now, but I would say that is looking quite a bit better. It still looks as though there's been a hefty chunk of rock carved from the mountain, which is of course the idea with this one. It's just not quite as big and doesn't come out all the way to like here, basically. When you look at it side by side, assuming this was terracotta too, I feel like the one on the right just looks a lot more natural than this. Maybe natural isn't the best word, but you know what I mean. It just looks better. You know what? I am happy with all of that. What do you think, noble steed? He loves it. Now you might be wondering why I've chosen to not use the terracotta blocks to build this thing, considering that's what it's meant to be carved out of. Pretty simple answer. There's no slabs of stairs or walls for terracotta. This structure is big, but it's not that big I can get away with using only full blocks. It just wouldn't quite look right, I don't think. It needs the extra detail. So maybe we can say these mud bricks and granite blocks are what's covering up the terracotta, used to reinforce somehow. I guess now we can turn our treasury into an actual treasury and no longer just a facade, but there's one slight problem. I need to dig some more, and doing all of that, combined with the resource gathering, I have depleted almost all of my pickaxes, other than my fortune ones, and whenever I dig holes out of stone, I like to use silk touch, so time to mend them up. I am really hoping my new calculator reactor is full of XP, but I have a feeling it's not, because I used this all recently. Let's give it a go. So we flick this lever, and then take the dried kelp out. and it's barely done anything. Oh, I know the rest are going to be the same too. Well, that was a start, but still got a few more to go. So I'll go to the next best thing, which is my wither skelly farm. I've started getting so many skulls recently, I've just put them all on spikes. I have an excess amount, which is something I never thought I'd say. There we go. Those are some healthier looking pickaxes. We now have ourselves a big old hole, which is completely empty at the moment. Not very impressive, I know, but to help with that, big old pile of gold. Now, preferably I don't really want to light this up using these frog lights, so instead we're going to get some decorated pots in the corner and slap a torch inside. These decorated pots could do with being, you know, actually decorated. Back to the base. Thank you. And back to the Badlands. I really wish these weren't so expensive because I love using them. I just never do because I don't want to waste them. That's okay. I would say these are going to be a worthy cause. Well, there we go. Now I'm basically out of pottery shards. So if I need to use them again, an adventure will be required, which maybe isn't the worst thing. Now I know this isn't the most impressory... That's not what I'm trying to say. Impressive treasury. Sure, impressory. But, you know, we can always come back to this when we do return and make something a bit cooler on the inside. But for now, a giant pile of gold, I guess, is impressory enough. But that's the second wonder of our world all finished. We can now move on to the third, which is going to be based off of the Great Wall of China. Construction on the Great Wall started around 700 BCE and was finished in the 17th century, meaning it took longer to build than the entire time Christianity has existed as a religion. Well over 2,000 years. Kinda crazy. I'm hoping mine isn't gonna take quite that long though. Ours also isn't gonna be quite as long. The Great Wall of China is over 21,000 kilometers, which equals in Minecraft to over 21 million blocks, which, yeah, no way. Even if I was building my wall just one block for every single meter, if it looked like that, I'm still not doing it. It would take me literally months, I think. But I would still like to build a wall. It's just going to be, you know, a lot shorter, and that's fine. Where it's lacking in length, it can make up for in just general size. This is going to be a pretty big wall. So the terrain that I've terraformed over here, as well as over there in the mesa biome, that's basically the stretch of the bridge. Which, no, it's not quite the length of the Great Wall of China, but still pretty far. So as you can see, this giant and incredibly expensive bridge made out of thousands of deep slate is actually going right in front of a coral reef biome. And I thought this wall could be positioned here in order to protect said coral reef. There are actually a few corals on the other side of the wall, which I'll probably get rid of, even though that kind of defeats the purpose. But just to try and keep all of the coral within this cove, which does have a couple of gaps which I should probably fill in. So I want to dive fairly deeply into the lore for all of these 7 wonders slash civilizations that we're making. Of course, your ideas are more than welcome. I haven't really fleshed anything out yet, but I have come up with a base idea for each individual wonder that we're building today. For example, for this civilization, we'll probably build some kind of seaside town where they're trying to preserve the coral for whatever reason it may be. Hence the giant wall barricading it off from the other side of the ocean. Perhaps there's some kind of invasive ocean species getting in here and eating and destroying all of the coral. And the residents of this town are just doing their best to keep them at bay. Maybe they built the wall, or possibly it was here before from a previous civilization. I'm not sure on the specifics, but that's the general idea. So we should probably make it so that it's not quite as easy to actually get past the wall via this giant hole. So now we have a copper gate, which in theory could be open and closed using this pulley system up here. Somehow. By the way, if you guys are enjoying this episode and just like the idea of this project as a whole, you might want to subscribe. I almost never mention this in my videos, but this is probably the type of one where I should, seeing as we're going to be coming back to it in many episodes down the line. And if you're having fun now, you're probably going to want to come back and see them as well. So the subscribe button is there if you want to use it, or, you know, you could just trust the algorithm. It's up to you. But I think that's going to do it for the wall. For today, at least. Obviously, at some point, we'll have a cool coastal town going all the way around the coral reef, but that's for a future date. Short and sweet, this one, I suppose. Okay. The next one's probably going to be even shorter and sweeter. It's time for the statue, whose real-life counterpart is, of course, Christ the Redeemer. Despite being Brazil's most iconic structure, the face of the statue was actually created in Paris by a French sculptor before being shipped over to Rio de Janeiro in several different manageable pieces. A little bit like what I'm doing with my shulker boxes, and the bonus is, I don't need to take an 8,000 kilometer journey on a boat. I can just fly there. Excuse me, where are you going? Oh, bathroom break. I'm not gonna lie, I think the most impressive thing about this next wonder isn't actually gonna be the statue itself. I think that might go to the terrain. Look at this thing, it is insane. We've got this pretty big lake surrounded by the steepest cliffs imaginable all the way around. It is gonna make for an amazing place to build some kind of civilization. We can definitely have a lot of fun with building some kind of cliffside community. But the statue itself is going to be going right up there on top of the highest cliff. Now I'm going to level with you guys. I struggled big time with this one. It is the last wonder that I designed before starting this video, and I honestly think if I tried to do this first, I would have scrapped the entire idea. I've learned that sculpting isn't my thing in this game. I went through so many different versions of statues that I was trying to build, some hyper detailed, some not so much, some very similar to Christ the Redeemer, and every single one was just kind of pants. So I figured I'd try and take things back to the basics a little bit and build something that feels a lot more Minecraft-y. Which basically means the shape is a lot more blocky and nowhere near as detailed as what I was trying to do to begin with. And in the end we have this, a giant statue looming over this terrain, which hopefully you can see is a little bit inspired by the classic Iron Golem. And look at this reveal, ready? You're just a traveller wandering through the woods, and you eventually start to notice this in the distance. You make your way through the parting in the trees, and wha-bam! I don't know if I should feel safe or scared with this thing around. I guess that's something we can play around with in a future episode. Perhaps this statue is these people's god. Maybe he's an overwatcher, protector, or something to be fearful of. We could literally build our own religion around these wonders. It does kind of look like he's peeing though, which, yeah, might have to do something about that. I'll leave it for now because I really like this waterfall, but it is pretty poorly positioned, isn't it? I definitely think my favourite thing about this statue, other than its just general presence in this area, is the eye. I've gotten quite into using polished basalt at the moment, which doesn't work if you zoom in, but if you look at the outline of all of these blocks where it goes a bit darker, if I zoom back out, it almost creates a little bit of curvature, which really works if you're trying to create something like an eyeball. It's very subtle, but I think it's a nice touch. But with the statue now complete, we can now move on once again, which does remind me that I actually really would like to link all of these wonders and civilizations up via pathways. I did have my original area I mentioned earlier a little bit wrong. It actually goes a lot wider and longer and generally just bigger than what I imagined, so there are going to be some long pathways. So this is the statue over here, and the wall that we just built is all the way over here. So yeah, it's going to be some mighty long pathways going between them all, but I think it'll be cool. I'll probably just do it out of regular path blocks only, just so it's not super time consuming, but we can make it a little bit more interesting by having some builds dotted along the way. Obviously signposts for when the pathway splits in multiple directions, maybe a couple of small inns or houses along the way, wagons, all that sort of stuff. I just want to build a really immersive world, and I think pathways are a must for that sort of thing. Anyway, on to the next wonder, which is the Taj Mahal. Surrounding the main structure are 4 slender towers called minarets, which if you look closely, you can actually see lean outwards slightly. Now, this is by design. In case there was ever an earthquake that caused them to topple, they would do so away from the mausoleum itself. For us to avoid that problem, which definitely exists in Minecraft, we are simply not going to build them. So we are going to be building our mausoleum over here in the Mega Taiga, which is one of my favorite biomes in the game. I absolutely love the giant 2x2 spruce trees. I think they look great. And it's a bit sad because, well, a good chunk of them here are really quite in the way. Well, I've now got a bunch of extra spruce logs, which I will always happily have, and a pretty sizable area to build our mausoleum in. Whether it's actually gonna be a mausoleum or some other kind of temple is still up for debate, but the first thing we gotta do, just like the Taj Mahal, is build a platform to place it on top of. I like using this trick when building on rough terrain because it allows you to actually place your build on multiple Y levels, which always looks a little bit better. And because this is literally just a box, it's really easy to do. You just make your shape and bring it up high enough to get out the way of the rest of the terrain. Then you've still got your nice flat surface to make the actual build upon, and because you haven't just flattened some terrain down, it doesn't really look quite as weird. I will say from personal experience, this tends to only work on a pretty large scale. If you've only got like a 5x5 build, the platform isn't really necessary, but when it's this large, it definitely works. There's some things which are added to this game which I just kind of forget about after a while, and the cow and pig and chicken variants are definitely one of those things. They're definitely not a bad addition because, I mean, look at them. They're pretty cute. I'm just always too far away from new chunks to actually see any of these guys. Maybe at some point I'll try bring some of these guys back home to the base. But not today. We got other stuff to work on for now. So that is our mausoleum, looking pretty similar to the Taj Mahal in a way. It's definitely got the same sort of shape. We've got the big dome on top and then the 4 towers that are on the roof or kind of nearby in the Taj Mahal, and then it's got these 4 outer buildings. It looks nothing like this, but it's got the same proportions, shall we say. I had a lot of fun texturing this one too. It doesn't look awfully textured, at least not in comparison to some other builds you might see, mainly because they're all very similar in colour. Most of the main building is just made up of tough blocks, tough and tough bricks with some chiselled at the bottom, but then under each of the roofs we have some pale moss and above it some acacia logs. I'm trying to do something with shadows there, but now that I think about it I might actually have those two the wrong way round, but it's fine. All in all, the build looks nicely worn, as though it's been there for quite a long time, which I'm hoping is going to juxtapose quite nicely with the inside, because I want to switch it up a little bit there. Okay! We're not going in there yet. I'm going to have to do some pest control first. Oh, I've just... just ran back to get some sea lanterns and they've all respawned. Oh! I was not paying attention to my health. Well, that's annoying. I am willing to bet. Yep. Back to spawn. No need to worry, crisis was averted. I was able to fly back with a spare elytra, pick up all my stuff, make sure everything is well lit so I don't have to worry about that again, and we can focus on the interior, which I was trying to talk about before I got a little bit distracted by dying. I want this to feel very clean and pristine, as though whoever is taking care of this building is really taking good care of it. Obviously, it's hard to keep the exterior of a building nice and clean over the many years it may exist, but the interior, you can keep on top of that a little bit. So in order to try and display this immaculateness, we're keeping the interior incredibly white using a whole lot of stripped pale oak wood, as well as a nicely contrasting deep slate tile roof, which I think looks pretty good next to each other, plenty of quartz, and a lot of light grey glazed terracotta. Glazed terracotta is definitely one of those blocks that only works in very specific circumstances, and I'd say this is probably one of them. Along with which terracotta block you use. The light grey one that I'm using here is definitely one of the least abrasive on the eyes, so you can kind of get away with using it in vast quantities if you're trying to make some sort of fancy floor pattern like we have here. But maybe this much, I don't know, magenta glazed terracotta might be a little bit too much. We've got these sea lanterns here that we do actually need to try and light this place up a little bit, otherwise we're going to get mob spawning. But I figured I should probably try and cover them up and make some sort of display over here. And I'm going to default to what I always do when I'm not sure what to put on display and use armor stands. We're going to have 4 of them, so I'm thinking maybe just stick an armor stand with some iron armor facing outwards. Looks protective in a way, I guess. And then we can also get some glass above it, and if I just do some fancy piston pushing, get a button up there and push it once, then push it again, and we squish it into the armor stand itself. Slap a trapdoor on top, and there we go, a cool looking display case, which we can repeat for the other 3 corners. There we go, that looks a little bit better than having just a random sea lantern there. I have done my best to try and cover up all of the sea lanterns and turn it into hidden lighting. I feel like I kind of want these civilizations to exist in the same time frame, within the same world, and if this one randomly has these magical glowing blocks, I feel like that's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Having said that, we are going to do something a little bit different with the next civilization. But first things first, it's not much of a centerpiece, is it? So we're going to build a lovely little water fountain with the water coming out the top and flowing directly into these hollowed out quartz sections. Well, that was a pain to do. I kind of forgot that when you're using slabs and stairs, you don't get infinite water sources, so I had to get a bucket and do each of these a whole bunch of times. Hello, buddy. Nice mushroom you got there. You know, I have a data pack that's meant to stop you doing that, but for whatever reason you just seem to completely ignore it every single time and grab whatever you like. I think with this in place now, we can safely say that this probably isn't a mausoleum. I guess we could do all of that stuff underground, but I'm going to class this as a bit of a temple. Oh great, he's just placed it in the room. Thanks a lot. Sure, I'll leave that there for now. So my thinking is, with this place, people living in the nearby village would come and pay their respects to the dead instead, maybe. So perhaps they could actually be buried underground. That would work, but maybe they toss something into the fountain, or just kind of stand here and, you know, be with their thoughts in silence. I'm not sure. Hopefully you won't be here when that's happening, because you're a little bit distracting, I gotta say. Anyway, that is going to do it for our mausoleum slash temple, whatever we're calling this. Doesn't really matter, honestly. We can now move on to the next wonder, which is inspired by the one and only Machu Picchu. One of the reasons Machu Picchu is such an engineering marvel is due to their stonework. The Incas who built it cut the stone with such perfect precision that they didn't need to use any kind of mortar. The stones would just fit together so well that it simply wasn't needed. Luckily in Minecraft, we are all just as skilled, because could you imagine if we had to use cement or something every time we wanted to build? It would be such a pain, wouldn't it? Oh, never mind. This is the location for our next wonder of the world. It appears the Enderman has followed us over here, so that's nice. But it's a great looking peninsula stretching out into the ocean, which is going to be perfect for what we actually build here. But before we start any of that, you are a little bit in the way, I'm afraid, Ruined Nether Portal. You're going to have to go. Much better. So Machu Picchu has been around for a while. It's a very old citadel and over the time has of course shown some wear and tear. And I was originally going to do something pretty similar for our wonder of the world until after a little bit of trial and testing I've decided I didn't think it was going to look very good. So we're going to do something completely different, just pre-warning. The only real similarity being the terrain, what we're building up right now. One of my favourite parts about Machu Picchu is the terraces that it has, which I think was mostly used for farming, but it looks really cool, so I wanted to keep that similarity with our wonder of the world over here and use that kind of tiered system as a foundation. I absolutely love just walking around up here over all of the different terraces. It is a really cool landscape and it's going to make for a very nice platform to build upon. The bunnies also love it. They can't get enough, it would seem. So this wonder is going to be a little bit different to the others in the sense that the village and civilization we build up around it is going to be the wonder itself. As for what makes it so wondrous and special, well, one word: wind. This civilization is going to be the first of the 7+ that we build that is actually beginning to advance. They've managed to figure out how to power their homes and the entire village, making use of their coastal gusts and wind turbines. So they're going to be able to use it to power things such as their lighting. We got some copper bulbs up there and give them a power source, and there we go, that's all done via wind. As well as other forms of power that I haven't really got to just yet. For the moment, the interiors are going to be pretty empty. But that's the idea. It's going to be a totally wind-powered village that is the first of its kind to do so. I'm hoping the idea of that isn't too far-fetched. Obviously, I want all of these civilizations and wonders to exist in the same time period. Now, just because their structure or their wonder looks incredibly old doesn't necessarily mean the civilization or village itself has to be that old. Maybe it was just around before the current day and age. Whereas perhaps this wind-powered village is maybe the newest wonder of the world. Of all of the technological advancements a civilization could make, in my dumb brain, this one seems like it could be feasible. And if not, well, I'm just gonna say that it is. It's kind of the bonus with world building, you just make up the rules yourself. And if I want to say a wind-powered village makes sense realistically in this world, then, well, it does. Let me tell you guys, it is not easy creating this many individual unique fans that hopefully look similar but different enough to each other. I didn't just want to have the same fan 15 times over, so they're all a little bit different. It's also incredibly easy to accidentally make a symbol you don't want to make when building fans in this game, and I've done my absolute darndest to avoid that. I should also say this entire build was inspired by a project I saw from somebody named Juniper. They made their own wind village in Minecraft, which is far much more impressive than what we're making here, but I just love the look of the houses and the concept itself was really cool. So we're building on that and doing something similar, but also our own thing. But anyway, we now have, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 houses, which is a pretty good amount. However, we are still left with this giant platform right in the center of the village. Man, you know, I just love using scaffolding with trapdoors behind it as a window. I think it looks great. It would be such a shame if mobs just didn't know how to pathfind and always got stuck in them and didn't know how to get back out. That would suck, wouldn't it? Yeah, we are going to collect a lot of mobs while we're working over here at this village. For some reason, scaffolding just really messes with them. They simply do not know how to escape. There were a couple of rabbits running around, and I'm willing to bet they are also stuck in windows somewhere. It doesn't really matter. We'll just have to come up with some lore as to why there are animals stuck in windows. But as for what we're doing with this platform up here, well, basically the same, just a lot bigger. So I'm thinking this building could be a factory or some sort of warehouse, maybe. I'm not sure on the specifics, but maybe it's where all of the people living in these houses go to work. Where maybe inside they are making batteries, storing the power generated by the windmills and using it to trade with local villagers. Or maybe it's just a central source of their power supply, though right now that doesn't really exist inside of here. I've turned all of the walls into spruce, and I've done that mainly so I have a blank canvas when I come back to work on this, but it might be a little bit too much, I don't know. One thing's for sure though, we have got plenty of room in here to play around with. But that is something we'll return to in a future episode. Just like the rest of the wonders, there is definitely more we can do here. As you can probably guess, I've spent an insane amount of time on this video so far, and I just don't have the time to finish this village completely today. But we can return and, you know, add pathways, nature, general life around here. It does feel like a bunch of empty shells waiting for a little bit more, but that's fine because, well, we can come back and add that little bit more, which is actually probably going to be a lot more. There's plenty more we can do here, trust me. But for now, we're going to head off to a nearby jungle and start, whoa, that didn't work, ow, start work on the last wonder of today's video, inspired by Chichen Itza. The most famous structure in Chichen Itza is El Castillo, which has some incredibly cool acoustics. If you were to stand at the bottom of the staircase and clap, the sound would travel upwards and reverberate inside the pyramid, echoing back this amazing sound, which just so happens to sound like the Mexican bird, the quetzal. I guess I could hide a parrot up the top and train it to make a noise on command, but something tells me that's not gonna work. Hey, buddy, by the way, I'm sorry for being a bit short-tempered with you today. I know you're just doing your best, and I appreciate your help. It's just all of this history, carrying it on my back, for telling it to the people, it's a lot to burden, you know? What are you on about? I'm just you with a mask on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Shut up. We have definitely saved the biggest for last. This is gonna be a lot of blocks to place. Better get started then, eh? So we are going to be building our Mesoamerican inspired pyramid in the jungle. Of course, that's kind of a no-brainer, but there's one problem with setting up over here. The trees. Oh, the trees. There are so many trees in the way right now. If there was ever a time where I wish I had a fire tick turned on in my world, it would probably be now. But it's okay. I actually quite like chopping trees sometimes. I did not like chopping those trees. That took way too long. And the worst part is, I didn't really even need to do it. I've just realized I'm going to be building a pyramid over all of this blank space. So it's just going to be covered up anyway. Kinda pains me a little bit, but it's fine. I guess I've got lots of jungle wood now to do something with. We've also got these weird floating vines that they're just gonna have to stay. For whatever reason, they're just sticking around. This one up here looks especially magical. The next step is to go around and do a little bit of landscaping. Basically just smoothing everything out with some grass blocks, covering up all the holes, making sure the ugly bits aren't so ugly anymore, and just making it look a bit nicer surrounding the pyramid, which I've gone ahead and plotted the outline for. Looks a little bit strange at the moment, you have to trust the process, but I have not made the mistake this time round to forget lighting the underside up. I've learned that Endermen absolutely love picking up my blocks at the moment, and no matter what data pack I add, it doesn't seem to stop them. So, yeah, I really don't want them picking apart my pyramid here as I'm building it, so plenty of froglets to go around. Now, just the simple task of building it. I have got so many blocks to place. This thing is going to be massive. You know, I actually feel a little bit bad now for this pyramid. I mean, look at it. Even way down here, so far away from our pyramid, it is dwarfed by the thing. But I absolutely love how this has turned out. Through all of the jungle trees, just peeking up above the canopy. Well, rising high above the canopy actually. This thing is gargantuan. I think this is tied for first place as the biggest thing I've ever built in Minecraft, alongside our desert pyramid, which actually works great because that's kinda like our version of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which of course is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, but because it's still around today, it's kind of also considered one of the wonders of the new world, alongside everything we've talked about today. But yeah, this thing, pretty big. And if we just take the staircase all the way to the top, give me a second, it's a lot of steps, takes a while, quite the workout, we get to the inner part, which is very much so unfinished, but honestly, I don't really know what I could put up here. Other than one idea, which does utilize some of this space under the pyramid, but because of how long I spent clearing this area, I kind of would like to do a bit more at some point. But pretty simply, the idea is a giant sacrificial pit. At least if you come up here for an evening sacrifice, you've got a nice view before you're tossed into the pits. I would test it out, but that is solid dripstone spikes down there, which would 100% kill me even with feather falling on from this height. And I'm not seeing any volunteers, unfortunately, so we'll have to leave it for now, unless a wandering trader wants to show their face. But what I am seeing is a bunch of empty land, which is in dire need of some foliage. I've got my box of leaves here, which we are going to use to try and replicate the jungle in these open areas. And let's just head out into a dense part of the jungle to kind of have a look at the terrain. What I'm seeing is a lot of tall trees, which shouldn't be a problem. But we also get a lot of the bushes that are on the floor. These sort of things, which is literally just a jungle log in there, covered in what looks like the top of an oak tree. Okay, here's one kind of on its own. It is literally just a log in the middle there, surrounded by leaves on the bottom, and then another layer on top, and occasionally it goes like an extra one higher. And most of the time they're in these bunches all kind of nearby each other, so that's what we got to try and replicate. And then just a sprinkling of short grass and ferns. So not too bad really. So here is the before, looking very barren around the pyramid, and then the after, where it's coated in greenery, looking as though it's much more a part of the jungle. One slight problem is this part right here, it's in a river biome, so the colour of the leaves change, which is a bit of a shame, but there's not much I can really do about that. I want to try something as one final thing to add to the pyramid. On either side of the staircase, we have these columns or passageways, which originally I just kind of had because, but I've realized that they would actually be perfect to place some water in. So at the top we have some soul sand just to get the bubbles, and magma at the bottom to once again get more bubbles. So hopefully it'll look like a continuous loop of water somehow. So let's see, hopefully this should send it down and not flood everything, because that would be a shame, but it looks like we're going good so far. And it just keeps coming down to the bottom where we want that to be a solid water source, and also kind of this one here I suppose. But now that looks weird, so maybe this one too? Okay, sure, that works. How does it look though? You know what, I think I'm going to have to do at least the left hand side as well. You know what? I like it. Adds an extra little bit of colour with the blue, as well as some movement of the actual flowing water, and honestly, just looks kinda cool. I could also potentially add some kind of redstone system to turn it on and off, but I don't know how to do that off the top of my head, and you know, it's getting late, so let's go place it on the other sides as well. There we go. That is a pretty cool addition, I think. If you guys don't like it, thankfully it's a pretty easy fix. But with that finished, we are now done with our 7 wonders of the world, meaning the final thing we have to do today is to give them all a name. Now I have come up with a name idea for each wonder we've built today, as well as the civilization that we're going to be making in future episodes, but they are not set in stone, so if you do have any ideas of your own, please don't hesitate to let me know down in the comments. So going in reverse order, starting with our pyramid, this is the Temple of Shakara, and the jungle Aztec Mayan inspired village that we're going to make will be called Tekaloon. For our wind-powered village, we are going to name it Kelsior, though that is likely to change at least a little bit. Throughout this entire episode, I've listened to the first Mistborn book, and it sounds an awful lot like one of the main characters, so I'll probably switch it up somehow. And then the power source that they are creating using this wind is called Zaire. The mausoleum, or whatever we end up turning it into, is called the Tiravel, and then the accompanying tiger village is Aravesh. Our big old statue is named Guardian Prime, or in the local language Thayloon, and then the cliffside village that we make around it will be called Orith. The seawall that we have protecting the coral reef is going to be the Bulwark of Dorun, with the seaside inspired village built behind it as Ostrun. The treasury built into the side of the Mesa Mountain will be known as Kelkalor, with the most likely Nabatean-inspired civilization as Merakel. And then lastly, the first build of today's episode was the arena, and that is going to be the Skyring, or in the people's language, the Varrock. And then their medieval, most likely, village that we make is going to be Grimscar. And boy does that make me excited. I've been wanting to do some large-scale world building in Minecraft for a really long time now, and though this probably isn't going to be to quite the scale that I would maybe dream of getting to one day, it is going to be so exciting nonetheless, and this has been a wonderful start to that project. But we're going to put a cork in it for now, because this has been by far the most amount of time I've ever spent on a video by a long shot. It has been a bit of a passion project of mine for the past few months, and I am so happy to see it come to fruition. So I hope you guys have enjoyed watching. Thank you ever so much for doing that, and I hope to see you in some more future episodes where we come back and build up all of these civilizations around these 7 wonders. I cannot wait. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you did enjoy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.